Welcome, adventurers. Today on Rebel Then King, we continue to build out adventuring parties using only a single class. This time, it's going to be the Wizard. And oh boy, is this going to be something. The Wizard is a class that I actually used to play as a Wizard, and it used to rank quite high for me. I really like the going to school for magic fantasy of the Wizard, but I think mechanically it continues to suffer a little bit and it falls down in my rankings, and it is definitely not a class that is very well known for being very versatile. So making a party using only wizards is going to be rather tricky. Hey adventurers, I bet you don't want to hear me talking about liking, commenting, and subscribing, but I bet you do want to hear me talking about knife throwing. This channel is approaching 2 years old, and I'm going to celebrate here on YouTube with a knife throwing tutorial and analysis video that might look a little bit like this. I am also going to celebrate over on twitch.tv/RebelThenKing with a debut stream on March 27th. I'm going to look back at my channel over the last couple of years, at Pathfinder over the last couple of years, and hopefully that will be the start of a lot of behind the scenes and sort of variety content. So again, subscribe here on YouTube for knife throwing and follow me over on Twitch for that debut stream. It's going to be fun though. So let's get into it. And here we go. We're going to start where I always start, with a hammer. We're going to try to make a hammer wizard. This is going to be a Colo with the martial disciple background. It's, of course, a wizard. The heritage is going to be Great Colo. We get 10 hit points rather than the typical 8 from the ancestry. That's helpful. We gain a bonus to athletics checks to reposition, shove, or trip. So we get a little toughness and a little more frontline utility out of that. We're going to get some Colo weapon familiarity. And remember, the goal here is to build a party of wizards without a field medic background, without extra cheesing human abilities, and without cheesing other ancestry abilities, though I'm not going to not pick up some of those abilities along the way. Mostly I want to see what I can get out of the class itself, but with a wizard who I want to be on the front line, I'm going to pick up a weapon. I just am, okay? With that, I did pick up the War Flail, a D10 plus 3 bludgeoning, pretty darn decent. Trip, remember the Great Colo has the bonus to athletics checks to trip, so that is a good thing to see, good synergy between our abilities there. Other details, honestly, it was a little tough to get extra use out of the wizard class itself, so I just went with Spellbook Prodigy, sure. School of Unified Magical Theory, and Improved Familiar Attunement because, hey, that's fun. Anyway, what I did with the stats for this build is, you see, it is not actually maxed out intelligence like normally you would do, max out your key ability score. Instead, it is just a +3 in intelligence, +3 dex, +3 strength. That's because as a wizard, you are unarmored. So I need as much dex as I can get to have a somewhat survivable armor class. That being said, I would never advocate for having a hammer, a primary frontline fighter with only a 16 AC. I would absolutely want to see that at an 18 or even a 19 if you are one of the few classes that can achieve that at level 1. Decent weapon damage, to be honest, for a wizard. It's not going to progress very well. I think that's going to be the theme with, it's kind of been the theme with a lot of these adventuring parties of one class is they do pretty well at level 1, but I think as you start to level up, they will suffer, and this is definitely going to be true of our wizards here. But let's take a look at some of the spells and how you would use these spells to be somewhat of a melee combatant as a wizard. Starting with Runic Weapon, Mystic Armor. Mystic Armor, boost up your AC. Runic Weapon, do some more damage. These are very good ways to boost your frontline ability, and notice neither actually relies on a spell attack roll or a save from an enemy. So your intelligence score, your class DC doesn't actually matter for these two. That is true with a few of the others too, like shield, glass shield, and warp step. Warp step, you can just move. You don't have to make a check. Shield, it just works. Glass shield just works. Yes, I went with shield and glass shield because you would want to shield block, and the shield spell, once you shield block with it, can't be used again for 10 minutes. Glass shield because, well, we want to do some damage, and this does shatter. It's made of glass and does damage to nearby attackers when you are struck. I do also have Gouging Claw. It's a very powerful attack spell. And then I went with Gale Blast as well. And I want to highlight a few things that you could kind of do with this build. You could get into combat, raise your glass shield. You take a hit, you shield block, and you actually deal some damage with that exploding shield. On the next turn, you could then use Gale Blast, which has the effect of doing a little bit of damage, but also pushing characters away from you. So you push them away with your 2-action Gale Blast, and then you raise a shield, your regular shield. So now the creatures have to waste their actions to close the distance with you, make an attack, and you get to block it. You know, at that point, sure, you haven't done a ton of damage necessarily, but you have wasted a lot of the enemy actions, and you've done some damage with the Gale Blast and the Shattering Shield. Another kind of fun thing you could do is Warp Step to escape a crowd. You'll probably want to do that. You don't want to get cornered with this build. And then since you are using the School of Unified Magical Theory, you can use the Hand of the Apprentice spell. Let's take a look at that. Hand of the Apprentice. You hurl a held melee weapon with which you are trained at the target, making a spell attack roll. On a success, you deal the weapon's damage as if you hit with a melee strike, but add your spell casting attribute modifier to damage rather than your strength. So in this case, it's actually the same amount of damage, but range is 500 feet. So you could use that. You could use that warp step to get out of hammer range, basically, and then still do some hammer damage. Is this an S tier hammer? No. Not even close. C tier, maybe? I'd have to go back and look at my video where I outline the criteria. Might even be a D tier. This, frankly, is just not something that the wizard is ever really going to do. If I'm wrong, if you know of a good way to build a level 1 hammer wizard, let me know about it, because that would be delightful. I would love to do that at some point. But realistically, you would be better off, if this was a party I was actually going to be building, using things like Runic Weapon to cast on your barbarian or someone else to give them the advantage and get in all of that extra damage that, frankly, this character's not. It's going to do okay. You know, like I said, it's probably a C tier hammer, but it's not going to be great. What does the wizard do really well, though? It can cannon. That is for sure. So here we have an elf who's a magical misfit. They're a whisper elf with wildborn magic. Yeah, we're going to get some extra magical abilities being a wealth. That's a combination of a wizard and elf. Welf. School of Battle Magic, of course, as a canon, and some experimental spell shaping. So with our spells here, we've got Force Barrage from our curriculum. We're going to do Acidic Burst, Horizon Thundersphere, Curriculum Spell, Telekinetic Projectile. Look at all these others. Phase Bolt, Frostbite, Ignition, Electric Arc, Caustic Blast. Innate Spells, Slashing Gust. Focus Spell, Force Bolt, basically a 1-action magic missile. So, you have a damage cantrip for every occasion, which is kind of the point here. You have the Reach spell from experimental spell shaping, so that you can basically always use the best cantrip all of the time. You might be 35 feet away from a creature that has a weakness to fire, but you know what? Use Reach spell and then hit him with Ignition anyway. I really like the Focus spell for this particular build. this is a focus. Usually with focus spells, I say use them early because they're pretty powerful. I actually like saving the focus spell here. I forget its name, Force Bolt, so that maybe you use a 2-action cantrip or one of your spells, and a creature that was already injured still is somehow up after it, and the GM says they are bloodied like crazy, but they're still somehow standing. That is a great way to use that sort of auto hit, 1-action Force Bolt, and take it out. The Whisper Elf gives us the ability to target concealed or hidden creatures, which is great for sniping, which is what this character could do. So you could be at range and something could be concealed, and you as the cannon could still make a decent attack at it. So we went from a pretty poor hammer build to quite a good cannon build here. Now let's take a look at something that the wizard can kind of do, which is be a mid-guard. Remember, mid-guard is that position that sort of sits in between the front and the back line and does a little bit of everything. This is going to be a gnome barkeep, Wellspring gnome with some first world magic. I'm again using some ancestry abilities to get some magic, more magic out of this. The Schools of Ars Grammatica, Staff Nexus, which is complicated, and I have to spend 10 minutes reading it every time I think about it, but that is okay. And then the spell selection and abilities with this build. So we have Runic Weapon, Shattering Gem, and Endure as our rank 1 spells. Those are all support spells. Runic Weapon, bolster someone's attacks. Shattering, well, by someone, I mean your cannon, or I'm sorry, your hammer wizard, because they're the only one using a weapon, basically. But Shattering Gem, that's a great defensive spell, plus a little bit of damage. I really like that spell. And then Endure, which is not great, frankly, but it is a hit point boosting support spell. The curriculum spell, we're going with Sigil, just for a little exploration. And then as far as the cantrips, Scatter Scree, which is good damage, plus a little battlefield control. Phase Bolt for shooting through cover. Void Warp, because that is also damage plus a debuff. You can leave a creature enfeebled 1 until the start of your next turn on a critical failure of their save. Light, exploration, you might need it. And then Infectious Enthusiasm, you can gain a +1 status bonus to your choice of attack rolls, will saves, or charisma-based skill checks. So you can use this to be a little bit of a mini bard and give your party a +1 to their attack rolls. Not nearly as good as what a bard can do, but you're trying. Overall, I would say this is probably a B to maybe even C tier mid-guard, compared to, again, something like a bard or even a cleric who might be casting Bless. Bless is better than Infectious Enthusiasm, because with Infectious Enthusiasm, during the spell's duration, an ally who observed you casting the spell and was within 30 feet when you did so can take a single action, which has the Concentrate trait, to gain the same bonus you chose. So your allies have to take an action to gain a bonus from Infectious Enthusiasm. That's pretty poor compared to Bless or Courageous Anthem, but I'm trying to make it work here. On to something that the wizard does do well, again, and that is be a professional. Basically, any intelligence-based class is going to be a decent professional, in my opinion, and the wizard does it quite well. We have a halfling, tinker background. They are an observant halfling with the innocuous ancestry feats, and they're part of the School of Civic Wizardry. I mean, literally a professional school for this this build. And then I went with spell substitution for the arcane thesis. So I already kind of covered wizards are great professionals due to being intelligence-based. Look at all that skill training. We got specialty crafting from the background. Observant halfling is great for finding traps and other things in exploration, which you want from your professional. It is wisdom-based, so you're going to get a little bit of out-of-combat healing. I mean, probably take battle medicine later. If you notice, this is, aside from Endure, this is the first bit of healing that we have. Wizards are not great at healing, so that's going to be tough for this party. And then spell substitution I did so you can swap out your exploration-based spells and fulfill that professional role. Maybe you need a lock, but all you have is knock prepared. I forget if those are both level 1. I don't think knock is. But the point is you can take the little bit of downtime to swap those out as needed. As far as the spells, I went with lock and illusory disguise. Good things for professional to have. Hydraulic push, get some attack options. Prestidigitation for the curriculum spell because you're the professional, you're going to be cleaning things up. You also need approximate, detect magic, message, time sense. Very exploration heavy in order to be that professional build. And then telekinetic projectile for an attack option. Okay, so what does this party do well? Some things. Hey, the cannon. That's good. They're going to be decent at ranged damage. All of them are. So there is that. I will say they have good skill training overall because you do have 4 intelligence-based characters, though because they are all intelligence-based, and I'm not overly indexing on any other abilities, you're going to have a lot of overlap of mediocre skills, which really doesn't amount to much. The bad, you're going to be squishy. Look at these armor classes and hit points. 15 AC, not good. 12 HP. 14 AC, 16 HP. 16 AC, wow, 17 HP. Not bad, hammer. 16 AC, 12 HP for the cannon. That is not a lot of hit points for a level 1 party even. And you don't have anyone even with a 17 AC. And certainly don't have the 18 or the maxed out 19 that you can get with some classes. So you are squishy, and that is going to be bad when you think about the fact that you have no healing. Like nothing. I mean, yes, I do have a little medicine training, and yes, we have endure. But compared to like when we did kineticists and we had the water and wood kineticist who can heal with 1 action all of the time, compared to bards who have hymn of healing and soothe, this is going to be rough. You're going to get hit a lot. You're going to need healing immediately, and you don't have the ability to do so. I do think this is going to be a low DPS party too. Even though we have a very good cannon, and even though everyone will be decent from range, it truly is melee damage that stacks up the fastest, especially when it's melee damage with a bunch of modifiers like a super accurate fighter or a heavy hitting barbarian or a swashbuckler with panache. You just don't have any of this. And when you combine doing little damage with not being able to take a lot of damage, I frankly don't think this party actually works. It was a fun thought experiment, but I don't think you're going to make it to the end of the adventure path, or even, I mean, maybe through a one-shot with this party. You are going to need some Deus Ex Machina. You are going to need some healing. You just, from exterior sources like going to a cleric or buying a bunch of potions or something like that. So, sorry, Wizard. The first 2 worked. This one, not so much. If you have ideas on how to salvage this party using only wizards and without using archetypes or anything like that, let me know. Otherwise, well, I suppose otherwise, I don't even know. I don't think there's going to be an otherwise. It's just not going to happen. Right? There's just like, let me know if I'm wrong, I guess. But yeah, I think the wizard is what it is, and it is not a super versatile class.